as your impression of what you just saw. First impression of the bell. What is it?
Old.
Old? Because that's really the history of the bell. It has nothing to do with the actual history. It's our impression of the bell that's made it famous. Obviously, people are concentrating on the front. Well, here's one of the myths. That's not a crack. That's a repair of a crack. If you want to see a crack, come over here. And you have to look through, the best way to see this is through the RT line in Liberty. It's a hairline fracture. That's what a crack would look like on the bell. When it reaches the surface, there are minute cracks throughout the entire bell. That's why it cannot be tapped or run. So that earlier crack would have looked like that, and then it was drilled out in order to have it sound right. When they were ringing this for George Washington's birthday, February 23rd, 1846. That's on the bells in the brick portion of the tower. The tower that you see there in white is from 1828. The original tower was taken down because it had rotted. That's where the bell would have been initially. Then it was brought down into the brick portion of the tower, and as that new tower is created, if you look right below where the bell is, there's a parapet. Now that's one of the highest points in the city back in the early 19th century. So people going up there to see the views of the city would have passed by this bell. It says, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." First ones who are going to call it the Liberty Bell are abolitionists, those fighting slavery in the 1830s. The verse is from Leviticus 25:10, which talks about the Israelites freeing slaves every 50 years, so they would have known the reference. So we don't really collectively call it the Liberty Bell until around World War I. You'll see old names attached to this, the old State House Bell, the old Independence Bell, in addition to the Liberty Bell, and finally the Liberty Bell won. The association with the bell with Independence Hall and the events that occurred there is going to make it famous historically. And then there's a story in 1847 that's written. In fact, if you look behind, all the way to the distance where it says Man's Magazine, it's publishing the story that was first published in 1847 about the bell ringing on July the 4th, which it never did. I know that's rather confusing. It sort of puts it in the same kind of context for people. Where are you guys from? What's the state?
Central Pennsylvania.
Central Pennsylvania. Coming to Philadelphia and running up rocky steps. There was never a Rocky. And no one ever asked where Sylvester Stallone ran. It's always Rocky. So that's the power of fiction. How powerful it can be. And so that's the same thing that would happen in the 19th century, except it's written. There's no movies in those days. So that's going to help it become an important cultural icon, not a historical one. That's why I asked you, what did you think of it when you initially came here? Okay? Obviously you recognize it. And that impression has been put in your heads. If you go back and take a look and see some of the photographs and people standing next to it, especially, because the bell used to travel beginning in 1885. Last time it left was just over 100 years ago for San Francisco in 1950. It was easier for people to see it that way on the train than it was for people to come here. Okay? And that's putting the image of the bell in people's heads. So it's like one of those ink blot tests. You know, what do you think this is? Chicken? You know, winged creature, whatever. And that's what the bell is what everybody's impression of it. Now it's pretty much a tourist attraction, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Because of its odd angle, people want to take pictures of it. Here, because of what they think is a crack, people want to take pictures of it. So that's now what it is. Do you have any questions?